Welcome back. We are going to be talking about real estate success for introverts, and we're going to be sharing with you some specific facts and fiction about what it really takes to be successful in real estate, because unfortunately, a lot of introverts think that they're at a disadvantage compared to all the extroverts when it comes to be successful. So our introverted friends, you're going to love what we're presenting to all of you today. But before we get to the first point, I want to remind all of you that it's not too late for you to join Premier Coaching. And as you probably heard, we are allowing you to join Premier Coaching for free, and we are including a daily semi-private coaching call when you join Premier Coaching. That means every single workday, you're going to be able to join a mastermind held by a Harris certified coach every single day and have all of your high-level questions answered and how to learn how to use our Premier Coaching system, including the pre-listing pack, including all of our lead generation systems, including all the branding and the marketing, including all the things that you need to make this your best year ever in real estate. So all you have to do is text the word Premier to 47372, or simply scroll down below, whether you're on YouTube or you're over on iTunes or anywhere else, and look in the show description and just click the word, or click premiercoaching.com, or of course you can just go to premiercoaching.com. Do that right away. It is what you've been looking for. Now, Julie and I want to, I think, do some updates to the podcast we did yesterday about why we believe that we are, and some of you got a little, I think, mad at us, frankly, for breaking one of our long-held positions of not being political on this podcast. And it was the inauguration day, so it's kind of hard not to be political. But what we were trying to focus on yesterday was not, we didn't want to be political, frankly. And I know it did come off as a little bit political, but again, I don't know if there's any other way around it. But what we were focusing on was how we believe that's a new golden era. Not just because of the president, frankly, but also because all the other things that are happening simultaneously. And so Julie wrote down some things, and I have actually one point that I wish I would have included yesterday as pertains to real estate. Julie Harris?
Yes, just two things for them to watch. The one is there's an infrastructure and urban planning proposals that are already being worked on. And specifically, those are plans under development for what will be called freedom cities. Isn't that interesting, right?
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, freedom cities, and those will be on previously undeveloped federal lands.
Where'd you find this, Julie?
I had my assistant help me research all of the 200 plus executive orders because I've read most of them, but I haven't read all of them.
That's awesome.
And I asked it to pull out anything that's related to real estate or land development or things like that.
So lessons, because this is the first I'm hearing about this. This is an actually huge real estate news story.
Yeah.
We need to do a whole podcast about that. So go to your little writing staff and ask them to help us really drill down and get as much information as possible about
for
it.
sure.
So what we're going to need to find out, and here Julie and I are talking in front of you guys, talking shop, but here's the bottom line, is that we're going to need to find out, okay, the executive order was signed, who is it tasked to? And then let's call whatever department in the government or whoever it was that's in charge of that, and let's get them on our podcast.
That's a great interview idea.
If they don't want to go on the podcast, let's at least just talk to them on a Zoom or whatever,
sure,
so we can get the drill down. We did a lot of podcasts with during the housing crash with all the big government agencies. So let's go ahead and invite those guys. But that is really big news.
Yes, it is big news, and there's a lot of undeveloped federal land.
Millions and millions of acres.
Maybe in every state, certainly some states more than others. And one of the things that was referred to was that they want to utilize some of the new transportation technology, which might, solve for some problems if it's a little bit further out yonder, right? And that one of the intentions is to lower the cost of housing as a result.
Well, high-speed trains and things of that nature, and also...
And Starlink, I think, maybe would go into that.
Of course. So you had a secondary point, because I'll get to mine.
And the secondary point was they are also reviewing zoning policies. We heard a lot about deregulation, but current zoning policies are under review. I think they've got 60 days or so to get some reports back. Land use policies, construction regulation, and there's also been put a pause on any new regulations that were about to be put into effect.
So, Jules, is this pertaining to just federal land, or
that's new construction in general?
New construction in general, but
so that would be multifamily, single family, et cetera.
Right, but I'm not sure how much federal government oversight there's going to be with regards to what the states are supposed to be in control of.
I don't know. I need more clarification on that as well. But the point is that the regulations are being scrutinized to be less, not more.
So here's something that Trump said. This is my only point that I wish I would have included. This is an addendum to yesterday's show. So he was signing all those executive orders, and one of the executive orders that he started talking about was the tariffs. And I know there's a lot of information back and forth about what tariffs really are, but all they are essentially doing is they are going to make it so that the products that are being sold in the United States are going to have to essentially, they're not going to be able to undercut the prices of domestically produced products. And so what happens in a lot of these countries is they'll export something to the United States that's so much cheaper, and because we have a lot of regulations, because, for example, to make a chrome bumper, let's say, the chroming in the United States is almost completely illegal. You can't even do the chrome process, just as an example. But a lot of the other, making, chips and all these other things. So there's a lot of products that have been able to be made in foreign countries, and the United States hasn't been able to make the products for that at that price because they have cheaper labor, or maybe they're being subsidized by the government, or maybe they're flooding, like Mexico was I forget, BYD, a Chinese auto manufacturer, was in the process of building a massive electric car facility right on our border in Mexico, because they were obviously going to flood the zone with electric cars and try to dominate the U.S. market with electric cars. And the previous administration wasn't really doing anything about it. And the Trump administration said, we're going to double, if not triple, the price of those electric cars unless they close down that facility. They're not going to do that. And they, guess what, closed down that facility. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. It's not necessarily a free market move, but that is what really is going to happen with all these tariffs. But here's the interesting thing. So a lot of these international companies that were selling products to the United States, and the United States is their only, if they're not their most important customer. So if you're making widgets in China, or you're making widgets and you're based out of Korea, or it doesn't matter where, and you're going to start selling those widgets in the United States, you're going to be facing down a huge potential increase in the price of your product, making it less appealing to U.S. consumers, which could very well put your business out of business. So what they're going to do, and this is really how it's related to real estate, is they're going to start building their manufacturing facilities in the United States. And that's really kind of interesting. So if all of a sudden we're seeing all these facilities that are getting built all over the United States to make all these domestically, domestic as in U.S. consumed products, maybe they're owned by foreign conglomerates, but the fact is they're going to be employed by U.S. citizens and being sold to U.S. citizens and essentially being oversaw by the U.S. government. And that's going to completely change a lot of these forgotten about flyover towns. And so if you think about where you're going to start seeing real estate booms, it's going to be where they start building these manufacturing facilities, like Spartanburg, South Carolina. Beautiful, beautiful little rustic town in South Carolina. Well, guess what they make there? BMWs. And they built that BMW factory back in the 90s when SUVs really started to take off. And then Columbus, Ohio, Julie and I's old market. What was it? Qualcomm or one of those companies is building a chip manufacturing facility.
There's a lot of that. I think there's some Amazon there. NVIDIA is doing something there.
But Amazon doesn't really, Amazon does make stuff, but for the most part, those are just distribution centers. But we're talking about actual production of making actual things. Now, where's that? That's going to be, those are going to start sprouting up on these parts of the country where obviously the states are creating, really beneficial zones for them to build, but also where labor costs aren't as expensive, regulation isn't as onerous, where maybe there's some tax situations that make more sense for them to build the facilities there. So we're going to really drill down on this information, and we're going to see boom towns that you've never even heard of before. We're going to see parts of the country that have been dormant for a long period of time explode because of some of these things that are being put in place because of tariffs. Now, I think that's interesting. It's a positive, unintended consequence of something that on the surface does seem a little onerous.
But could be very economically stimulating for some of these towns and even new towns. So, yes.
Yep.
All right, on to our topic du jour. Per a common request was to talk about introverts in real estate. Now, before we do this, there are a lot of notes to this. They'll want to implement some of these points. Remind them how to get the notes.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I forget to do that. So HarrisRealEstateDaily.com is our daily newsletter. That's the only place where we publish these notes. So make sure if you want all these long form notes, Julie and I use notes on every single podcast except our Friday ones and yesterday's, frankly, that you can get all these notes just by going to HarrisRealEstateDaily.com. All you got to do is drop your email in. It doesn't cost you anything. And then you got to bounce over to your actual email. So if your email is bob@gmail.com, you put in bob@gmail.com, and then the system's going to send you an email that you have to double opt in. So bounce over to your main email, and then you have to confirm that you want the subscription to the newsletter. And again, it's free, and then you're off to the races. So you're not only going to get our notes, you're going to get the podcast, you're going to get videos, you're also going to get exclusive content just for our newsletter subscribers, so do not delay.
All right, so the common myth is that you have to be a real people person to be successful in real estate or maybe in any sales. That you've got to be outgoing, gregarious, and socially confident to be great at this. But the fact is that some of the most successful top producing agents and brokers in the country are self-proclaimed introverts. Some of them you've heard interviewed right here on this podcast. So keep that in mind. Now, how do you know if you're a natural introvert or an extrovert? We need to maybe define this a little bit.
Well, actually, Julie, I don't know if you remember this, but we actually have a site that they can go into actually have a free personality test.
Find out for sure.
A free personality test called Agent Disc, Agent DISC. That is a website that we made a while ago. You can just go to Agent DISC, agentdisc.com, and take your own personality profile test. There's no links in the show description, so you're just going to have to write that down and remember. There are links for Premier Coaching members and new Premier Coaching members. Make sure you take the personality test. But really, at the end of the day, you know, as far as being an introvert or an extrovert, to Julie's point, a lot of the things in real estate, frankly, bad training and, you know, real estate gurus will in essence tell introverts after you've taken a personality profile that if you are indeed an introvert, that your probability of succeeding in sales is diminished greatly. Mm-hmm. And I'm here to tell you, and Julie is as well, that's completely and totally a lie. And I'll go as far as to say that the exact opposite is true. Julie said that some of our best coaching clients ever have not been introverts. Have not been extroverts. They've been introverts. An introvert is somebody like, just to summarize, if you're not familiar with those terms, is like, if you have nothing to do this Saturday, okay, and you live, you know, you have the whole day to yourself, what are you going to be doing with your time? That's a fun question you can ask yourself. So are you going to be reading a book, listening to podcasts, going on a walk, hanging out with maybe a small group of friends, if not just your family? Are you going to go to the beach and be around a bunch of people? Are you going to go to parties? Are you going to go to places where there's a bunch of other people that you're going to be forced to interacting with? When you are at a party, when you are going to something that requires a lot of interaction, are you feeling drained, like you need a nice long nap after that? Or are you basically feeling charged up like you're ready to go to the next level? Some of you don't know, because maybe in different situations you feel different levels of energy and enthusiasm. But let's make it a real estate event. So if it's a real estate event, it's work related, and you go there and you're around other people constantly, are you feeling charged up at the end of the day or feeling exhausted? You know, that's kind of, and those two questions, but the weekend question is always a fun one because you know the answer instantly. You got nothing to do this Saturday. Mm-hmm. Nobody's expecting anything of you. Nothing's due. No paperwork's missing. Nothing. What are you doing? How many of you are just zoning out by yourselves? Well, welcome to the club. You are an introvert.
That is a great real world test. Okay, so would it surprise you to find out that introverts can indeed be very powerful speakers, salespeople, entertainers, entrepreneurs, actors, and leaders of all sorts? So how do they do it? Do they have some kind of super secret strategy that you can learn or deploy? Well, Susan Cain, I read this book. It's called Quiet, the Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. She was chosen as one of the top 10 TED Talks ever. So that tells you it's not just you if you're thinking that you need help with this. According to her, nobody is 100% introverted or extroverted. Most people are a mix, but probably tend strongly towards one or the other. But society, Tim, to your point, and certainly other people other than us, real estate trainers, has long rewarded or encouraged the more outgoing, attention-grabbing types of personalities and tended to ostracize more introverted types.
And how do they do it? So you'll go to some, I'll tell you where we came across this, where it really was honestly, it's offensive. It was back it was probably about 15, 16 years ago. Mm-hmm. Julie and I were speaking at in a brokerage's event, and we were walking around. We had done our little thing, and it was in between sessions. There was nobody in the hall, and we could pop into wherever we wanted to pop in. So we popped into someone doing a DISC personality test, and the room was pretty full, maybe 300 or 400 people. And we stood in the back and we just listened. And there was a little panel up, and one person was a D, one person was an ISC kind of thing. I mean, this whole thing's been, it's normal format for these types of things. And then the all-seeing eye guru, the eye of Modor, was essentially kind of like somehow able to, with a crystal ball, not a figurative one, was able to sort of tell the strengths and the weaknesses, almost like they're, somehow telling this person about their personality. Oh, you, Mr. C-type, this is your strength, these are your strengths, and these are your weaknesses. And in real estate, and this is what pissed me off, frankly, you should not be in a sales role. You should not be in a frontline role. You should be somebody who's supporting a driver or an expressive. You should be not somebody who's going to be doing the presenting. You should be the person that's supporting doing the presenter, all this kind of hooey. And so honestly, that made me mad because, I'm not an idiot, and Julie and I have been coaching agents forever, and we know the truth about all that stuff. And I didn't, that was really a good tee off for me to start researching this whole DISC thing. So we did. And this what I'm about to tell you, in the real estate realms, especially the ones that are really mired in the mindset space, they were heretics for telling you the truth, but this is what we're about to tell you. DISC is complete pseudoscience. It's fake science. It's not real. And if you go to research this yourself, I know somebody right now is pissed off I said that, but it's true. Because there's whole people that make livings from doing this stuff. And yes, Myers-Briggs and all these other personality tests are essentially cousins to DISC. DISC was originally created by somebody named Dr. Marston. I'm pretty sure I'm remembering all this correctly. I haven't talked about this in a long time. So Dr. Marston, if I remember correctly, also was the creator, and this is, you decide whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, of the cartoon character Wonder Woman. He was also a bit of a, I don't know, all kinds of little personality quirks. Let's just leave it at that.
You can look it up yourself.
You can look it up yourself, right? And he was definitely part of the 1960s sort of, mindset movement and all that stuff that was sort of, part of that realm of belief. And you guys, again, do your own research on all of this. You'll discover what I'm saying is true. But it was not real science. And matter of fact, I think it was him or his daughter or one of his wives or something like that, who later came out and said it was never really created for what it kind of grew into. And he wasn't the one that originally was intending for, industry to start using it to assess the natural, strengths and weaknesses of individuals based on this, this test. It was, again, completely blown out of water. I believe that it really became popular in the 80s. It's all sort of narcissistic and, some belief that you can be categorized. And if you're more of this and more of that, you're going to be successful. And the other side of this is hilarious too. The people that test driver, look, I got news for you. Julie Harris, the first time she took it was a high C, very analytical. But over the years, she's taken it, at different things. And she can test it out however she wants to. So she can come out as an expressive or a driver or whatever. It doesn't matter what form the test is, because here's the reason it's pseudoscience. Any test that's self-administered is fake. That's just it. When you're on Instagram and you're doing a little test and you're taking a little quiz and you're the one doing it, do you think that's science? Are you going to go to, take the results from that Instagram test and take it to the doctor and get some sort of prescription? You're not, are you?
No, but that's how people have come to treat it.
Right.
So I think that the period to the end of your sentence there is that it is a guide at best. It is not a diagnosis.
It's not real. I don't know how else to say it.
It's not really a treatable ailment.
Well, I don't like it. It really pisses me off because all these morons that think they know what they're talking about, they talk with all this confidence about how they're experts and they've studied it. And again, you and I have been in this space for so long that we'll have conversations with some of these people. We'll ask what their research level was. And almost always they're going to say they got certified, some online DISC test. And then, well, have you ever researched it? Like the information I just gave you guys about Dr. Marston, none of these, I've never run into a single one of these DISC experts that's ever taken the time to do the actual research and to realize it's pseudoscience. So there is no way that anyone's going to be able to give you a test where it's going to be able to be a predictor to whether you're going to be successful selling real estate. And if you are a victim of that type of misinformation and you're walking around believing that because you're an introvert that you can't be selling real estate, you need to flush that out of your head because it's absolutely positively not true. And the very fact that you believe that, or someone has led you to believe that, might have essentially ruined years, if not, decades from your life of what you could have otherwise been doing. So set that aside. And
we can change this, right?
Yes.
So now that said, it is true that there are people who tend to be more introverted or more extroverted. That doesn't mean that something's wrong with you or something's right with you. Tomorrow we're going to talk about extroverts and what some of their challenges are. So let's just say that you're a self-proclaimed more introverted type. And again, to mention, we've given you agentdisc.com. That's a free, very in-depth test. If you want to do that, there are people that charge for that. I don't think it's worth charging for.
Well, all they got to do is go to agentdisc.com and just take the test.
Exactly. So let's just say that you feel like maybe you're more on the introverted side and maybe you felt a little challenged by not being super outgoing or gregarious. All right. So strategies that can change your life. none of which cause you to sell your soul, right? Okay. So number one, have confidence in the person you actually are. That's what we were just talking about. There's nothing wrong with you if you're on the introversion side. The more comfortable you are in your own skin, the less you're going to allow criticism to affect you. So stop believing that you have to change your personality radically, or if you're not a driver, that you're going to be terrible at sales. Instead, you only need to upgrade it and become more versatile. Be yourself first, then be you, talking about real estate.
Okay, now we have to talk about this because it's funny.
Sure.
So there have been DISC tests given to people in jail. Okay?
Right.
People in prison, as in people who have done crimes. And just to summarize the agent DISC thing, or DISC, if you haven't studied this yet, driver is somebody who is basically gets to the bottom line. They don't like chit chat.
They're direct.
My way or highway, direct. They're not versatile. They just see the world. They're a little, I mean, if you want to use other sort of pseudoscience words, they're narcissists. They might even frankly be a little bit sociopathic, okay? Those types of people. Imagine a real stern, coach that is never going to be any way sympathetic or empathetic. And if they are, you get this constant vibe that they're just faking it so they can go back to basically being overbearing. That's like a driver. And then there's the expressive type. That's like the cheerleader type. That's the person that essentially an expressive person is going to be easy to be around. It's going to want to be the center of attention, generally wears brighter, colorful clothes. Gregarious, demonstrative, those types of people are always fun to be with, and sometimes if they're versatile, they could be great leaders too. But in the pure essence of an expressive person, that's somebody who basically is always going to try to draw the attention to themselves directly and indirectly. An amiable person is like, the visualization is like a golden retriever. Talks a little slower, wants to be everybody's friend. See, the driver and the expressive, they talk really fast. The driver and the expressive, they talk fast, they walk fast, they think fast, they act fast. The amiable person is going to be like a big, friendly golden retriever.
They have not just one, but 2 or 3 types of Band-Aids in their purse.
Exactly.
Probably comes with Neosporin. They're going to take good care of you. They're family-oriented, often are teachers, but not always.
Yep.
But very much their North Star is taken care of.
Right. And so you see how there's some logic to this DISC stuff, and there's some validity to it. But if you use it as an excuse or a crutch, or if it's been a burden to diminish your potential, that's where it becomes a little bit heinous. But you get the gist of it. And then there's the analytical person. The best way of understanding that, going back, the driver's like the over-dominant football coach. The expressive is like a cheerleader. The amiable is like a golden retriever. And the analytical person is like a scientist or like an accountant. They're going to be very facts and figures. They don't run their lives with emotion. You go and present to somebody like that, they're going to want to see your spreadsheets. And where the problems come in is if you're not versatile. So if you're not versatile, and if you're real, hello, look at me, I'm the center of the universe, I'm an expressive type, and you're trying to work with an analytical person who's like, yeah, whatever, let me see your spreadsheet, let me see your facts, let me see what you've actually done, let me see your numbers, your statistics, all your things, and you're not versatile enough as an expressive person to be able to meet that analytical person where they're at. And the analytical person talks slowly. They keep their emotions to themselves. Sometimes they come off a little stoic, those types of things. Maybe have their arms crossed
More
a lot.
Quiet.
Don't wear anything or do anything to really draw attention to themselves. So if you're not able as an expressive person to essentially make yourself be more versatile, make yourself meet that analytical person where they're at, then you're not going to have those people as your friends, and they're certainly not going to want to do business with you, all right? So the most common personality of any prisoner, and this test has been done by 2 or 3 times, are drivers. And so that's really nice.
Non-versatile drivers.
Right. And it's obvious because when you walk into a bank and you're a bank robber, there's no chit chat. It's like, give me your money. I mean, that's a very driver statement.
And no
right?
amiable is going to do that.
And amiable's going to be going like, here's please, if it's not too inconvenient for you.
Got a couple of extra bucks.
No. You help those customers first. I'll sit here and wait. No, don't worry.
Wait.
Right.
Yeah,
but that's the
exactly.
point. So the most an unversatile personalities, anybody that doesn't have the ability to adapt to the people around them ends up finding themselves, generally speaking, not having a very big world. And so what a lot of people will do, and you can kind of just be introspective and ask yourself, how versatile am I? Are all your friends like you?
That's a tell.
Are all of them amiable? Or do all of them just want to sit around and talk and, no one ever gets to the point and they talk slow and they're real nice to be around? And okay, well, do you have any friends that are analytical? Do you have any friends that are, maybe more expressive? That's lack of versatility. And that lack of versatility is something that you can learn. And that's the point that Julie's that she's successfully making with these points.
And you can apply that to any personality. The lack of versatility is the problem, not so much the personality itself.
Well, so we're working on that with Zoe, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Zoe's personality is changing to be more of an extrovert, to be more of an introvert. But her real issue is she's probably still an extrovert, but she's not learning how to be versatile and how to essentially make friends with kids that aren't just like her.
Exactly. And her friend's the same. So.
Yep, definitely.
All right. Now, point number 2, use scripts that don't sound like scripts. Know your material cold, especially my analytical friends. Knowledge equals confidence and ignorance equals fear, so be confident. Introverts tend to be perfectionists, thus you tend not to speak up until you're confident from your knowledge, right? So memorize, internalize, and then personalize the scripts. Embrace the fact that by being more prepared, you'll not just be more confident, but also more competent, and that makes you want to open your mouth more frequently.
Scripts following a system like our 7-step listing process, our 8-step buyer process, those types of things. Analytical people are like, okay, Tim, shut up, give me the process so I know what to do.
Yes, tell me what to do. I'll follow a checklist.
Right? That's what an introverted, analytical type person is going to do. They just want to basically tell me what to do, tell me how to do it. No, I get it. I'm just going to say that I'm not even confused about using a script. I know I need to use a script. And they're going to use it, and they're going to get better at it, and then they're going to stick to a schedule, and they're going to be like Navy SEALs, operating at, full song. That's how a really tuned in analytical person is. And that's not how say, for example, an extroverted expressive type is going to be. They're not going to want, the scripts aren't for me. I don't want to have a schedule. I go wherever the breeze blows me. People list with me because they love me. They like me. All my customers are my past clients and my friends that I know from, all these things, right? Whereas you put that expressive person in front of an analytical type, my point I'm trying to make here is they're not going to appeal to that person. They probably won't even have that opportunity in the first place because the analytical person will have essentially not been attracted to them because they weren't like them, you see. So if you find yourself surrounding yourself with only people that are very similar to you personality-wise, by the way, this is also true with health-wise, income-wise, your relationship with God-wise, all these things. You need to learn to be more versatile and start pushing yourself to become, have more of an expansive friend group. You can do it virtually through podcasts and whatnot, but really in your own life, make sure you're always pushing yourself. I'm not saying ditch the old ones and, get new ones as far as friends go. What I am saying is make sure you don't get yourself stuck in the mud with just the same sort of thoughts and energies every single day, because you're missing a vast majority of the potential of the people, the people you could potentially help.
Very well said. Thank you for that. So, number 3, recharge your mental, emotional, and spiritual batteries every day. What makes you tick? Introverts tend to be rejuvenated by quiet, dedicated time to themselves, like refilling your cup, right? So this could be a walk, meditating, biking, or just reading for 20 minutes. Refill your cup routinely. For me, it's going in the ocean, seeing the fish.
Well, and also you and I, by the way, newsflash, Julie and I are both introverts. Okay,
no, nobody ever believes that, but it is true.
It is, it's because we've learned to be versatile. But Julie and I are natural introverts. You want proof? Because guess what? If you guys have been listening to this podcast for a long time, which a lot of you have, we spend a lot of our time with each other, walking 6 miles, usually 3 days of the week. We work out every day together. Now when we're at the gym, we're making friends and whatnot.
Versatility.
And when we're going on our walk, we're getting to know other people. But we're listening to podcasts, and we're really interested in expanding our knowledge base so we can be of service to more people. That's where we focus most of our energies. We get invited to parties all the time. We got invited to a party on some guy's, a friend of ours, yacht this weekend, and we were like, let me get back with you. Yeah. Exactly.
But I also made a point of telling him it's nothing personal because he is probably one of the most expressive people that we know. He's charged by having those parties, not drained.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we understand that.
Someone's listening right now going, you guys got invited to a yacht party and you're not going. We've been to yacht parties before, and the problem with a yacht party is that it's very hard to leave. You have to wait for the dinghy to come back. If the yacht party gets a little heatheny, just keeping it real here, folks. It's, there's no boat there to take you back to shore. So you're having to be participating in this, situation, or at least observant of it until the boat shows up. And you know what? There's no such thing as a boat that's big enough to have a decent sized party. I suppose there is, but we haven't been on one yet.
Maybe it's the people to boat ratio that's the
It
problem.
has to be at least, and this is insane to say, but from our boating experience, being on other people's boats, we will never buy a boat, by the way, but we have lots of friends with boats. It has to probably be at least, in order to really have room to sort of like, not feel like you're just tripping over people, 100 feet probably.
At some point, it becomes a ship. I'm not sure what that requirement is.
I mean, seriously, it's
Yeah.
huge. You got to have a big ass boat just to base. Anyway, who cares?
Or invite fewer people, but I don't know. We
Yeah,
don't
but
understand.
anyone that's buying a boat is buying a boat
To have people on it.
To have people on it because they're expressive. And there's no such thing as an expressive person who bought an $8 million, $10 million, $20 million yacht who's not going to have parties at every damn turn of the road.
I think that's true.
And which means they're going to have as many people that will show up on the boat as possible, which means you and I aren't going.
That boat question should be on the DISC test. Do you have a boat? I'll tell you who you are. Okay. My number 4, accept and embrace, salespeople, that you will hear no matter what your personality style is, more than you hear yes. And that no is not never, it's just not now. So stop taking everything so personally. Have at least 5 conversations every day where you could hear no, and then you'll also hear more yeses.
Well, that's, we're hypocrites now after telling the boat story. But do play the yes game, right? So the yes game is where, now, you got to be careful who you let know that you're playing the yes game, because people like your kids will take advantage because they know you're going to say yes. But everything for the next day that someone asks you to do, say yes. And, have your own boundaries and whatnot. But that you're going to then realize how many things you say no to on a regular basis. And the problem is if you say no too frequently, people are going to stop inviting you because they are going to take it personally. To Julie's point, we've been to other parties and whatnot that the same gentleman throws. And so he knows that, we're picky, but we're not rude.
Exactly. All right. Point number 5, act as if, my introverts, act as if you are extroverted without losing yourself. Who do you know who has that positive and outgoing traits and is well respected? Blending your natural tendencies with a few other characteristics will increase your versatility. This is not to say that you should be fake. You might find out that you have some latent outgoing traits that are already within you. Most people do.
Modeling other people is a great idea. Julie, who's that gal? I got you a T-shirt when we were in Milan with her face on it.
Oh, Audrey Hepburn.
Audrey Hepburn, yeah. So Julie, and this is, we've been married for 34 years this year, but when Julie was in her 20s, she was trying to just sort of have some, I don't want to tell your story, but you modeled yourself after Audrey Hepburn, but not just how she looked.
Right. Well, I was looking, and I think it's wise for you to have somebody that you kind of model after, and I was looking for somebody that maybe was similar to me, more introverted, but wanted to do more things in life that your natural introversion would lead you to, right? And I read a story about how Audrey Hepburn, there's a lot of very interesting early stuff that happened to her, but I'll skip that for this purpose. She didn't have acting training, but she found herself in these roles. So what did she do? She learned to dress that way. She learned to speak that way. She acted as if she was that character without having a lot of acting natural ability or training in her background, and you can see what that did for her career.
Well, the modern way of saying that, and which is frankly crude, but fake it until you make it.
Right, without being overly fake.
Right. So when you, again, don't want to go down this
I would
rabbit.
say emulate is better than fake.
Sure, model yourself,
Right.
model
Yeah.
your behavior. But you can choose different people that you want to, alive or not alive, right? Of people you want to model your behavior like. So maybe investing wise, probably be smart if you modeled your behavior by Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger. Maybe Julie, you want to model yourself as like Audrey Hepburn. Isn't she the one that said bloom where you're planted and all these things?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. So it was essentially a philosophy of life, but also how to present yourself, and not because Julie's an introvert and she didn't want to act like she was a peacock, and neither did Audrey Hepburn. But everyone remembers her of being beautiful and being classy and
rising to the occasion
and never being overbearing. Yeah,
that's right. And we talk about this a lot in our Harris Rules book, as well as in the Treasure Map, where we're talking about upgrading things, and it's okay to ask for help. So I remember in my early 20s, I never wore a lot of makeup, and there's so many different ways you can go with that. But in business, I wanted to always look put together. So what do? Do I just go to CVS and buy something for $6? No, I wanted to do it right. So I went to the Chanel counter. I asked them to do my colors. I asked them to recommend how to do things. And that's the only thing I did So I knew that when I went to a meeting that I was pulled together. Everybody, men and women, can go to stylists. You could go to Nordstrom's. You could even go to, like J. Crew. Those salespeople are trained. If you go in there and you say, I've got a $1,500 budget and I want 3 business outfits that are business casual, and here's my size, can you put it together?
The point is you can model your behavior. So whatever the characteristics are that you like in this particular person, maybe it's their aesthetic. Maybe it's, to Julie's point, how they look. Maybe it's, how they present themselves. Like, for example, we've done tons of podcasts and do a lot of training on this. If you've ever, there's some people that have, as our Francais friends will say, je ne sais quoi. Like they walk into a room and all the energy seems to go to them. All the people seem to like, oh my gosh, they're so-and-so. I want to be around them. And sometimes it's just because they're famous for being, doing dumb things. But a lot of times it's because they've had previous interactions with that person and they like the way they felt after they had those interactions with people. And I won't give you guys any particular, famous people as an example, because then I'll give you one and you're going to watch your mind shut it down, but just hear me out, okay? So Bill Clinton was somebody who was very, very famous for having that certain je ne sais quoi, where people are around him. And these aren't just, again, I'm not being political. I'm just saying he definitely had hacked this.
He had some charisma.
He did.
Yeah.
He had some charisma. He probably still does. And so when you were around him, even if it was a mob of people around, and again, you research this yourself, people felt like they were the only, like them and Bill were the only ones that were in the room. Nobody else was around. Nobody else was having these conversations. They felt special. They felt listened to and cared for. So that's what Bill was doing. He was very good at that. So he would bond at a high level in a very short period of time. So fast forward, here's one of the ways he did it. So during their fundraisers, what they would do, or during parties, what they would do, is they actually would have a list of all the people who were coming. The list would then be, obviously, if someone checked in to go to wherever party it was, then the person who checked them in would then report to the person that was, there was like a little information pipeline, where ultimately there was somebody that was standing behind Bill that was telling Bill before, like, the elevator opened, or telling Bill before the person walked into the room. And that's Bob and Sally. And if Bob and Sally were donating to you, or this, that, the other thing. They're from California. Their kids are this and the other thing. So they had little profiles prepared for Bill of every single person that was going to these individual events, and they would whisper in his ear. And there's video of this exactly happening, whispering in Bill's ear. And so when Bill would stumble across Bob and Sally, he'd go, "Oh, how's your golden retriever? And I understand you had a horse that you just, won some competition in or whatever." And people are like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you remembered that." So he figured out a system to go about bonding with people. And Julie and I will tell you guys to use FORD, family, occupation, recreation, dreams, that when you're meeting people, you obviously start out by asking them about their family, occupation, and then you can keep notes about them in your phone, so you can have your own little virtual assistant. I have to say, I'm really excited about some of this AI that's going to be coming around, that's going to keep track. You're going to, maybe have a wearables glasses thing. It's going to see the person coming. It's going to give you a whole profile on that person. So everyone all of a sudden is going to have this incredible memory of everyone they've ever met before. But those types of things are really embraced by analytical people, introverted analytical types.
Making that last point, that it's okay to get help with this, right? Help can be something like what you were just talking about. It can be emulating somebody that, they've got that je ne sais quoi that you look up to. It could be like what you described with Bill Clinton, where you've got an assistant, whether that's AI or a real assistant in the background. The appearance and the impression was that he had this amazing memory. He knew everybody. He remembered everybody. He made you feel special. He was engaged with you. Well, I mean, think of how many thousands of people he had to keep track of, right? But he got help.
There was a secondary element to that, too.
What was that?
He wasn't talking about himself.
Exactly, which brought you to the Ford script to remind them of that.
Which brought me from the Audrey Hepburn thing, because that's the other thing that she didn't do.
Yes.
So without even understanding psychologically the importance of basically avoiding talking about yourself when you're around other people, just accept that it's true. Because everyone's favorite topic is what, dear listener? What's your favorite topic? Admit it. Yeah, it might be sports, might be Formula One, might be real estate, but what it really is you. And if you're around somebody who's asking questions and showing sincere interest in you, especially if you're an introvert, you are going to have that je ne sais quoi. You're going to have a superpower that the most extroverted, bouncing off the wall, center of the universe type person is never going to understand, because guess what their favorite topic is? Guess what the only thing is that they want to talk about? Themselves.
And we're going to talk about you guys tomorrow.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So you can be an extrovert, by the way, and you could learn to be more, focused on the other person and learn the natural innate skills and talents of an introvert and have that certain je ne sais quoi yourself. But generally speaking, it's been my observation, it's harder for an extrovert to slow themselves down enough to think, to ask questions and show sincere interest in the person they're talking to. And you guys, you're thinking, oh, you're telling me to do something that makes me feel fake. You're learning something new, and it is going to feel fake and contrived when you're doing something that's new. I mean, we're taking Zoe to pickleball today, and she doesn't like it because it's new, and she doesn't like this and the other thing. And after all, she's an expert. I'm just hearing her complain right in my ear. And I know how to do it. I don't need to take lessons. All you do is this, the other thing. And of course, she doesn't know what she's doing, and the teacher's teaching her what to do, and she's getting better at it, and the whole thing. But, that's ultimately going to be something that it's going to slow you down. If you're not going to be willing to slow yourself down and actually be more focused on the other person, being focused on being more present, being focused on the fact that some people you have to talk slower. Some people you have to, don't be so touchy. Some people really hate that. These are a lot of us have these intuitive pangs that have made us successful in sales, as salespeople. Because we can intuit or we can feel other people's feelings and emotions. And we all have that to differing degrees. It is what it is. It's a sense. You don't have to understand. Analytical people are saying, Tim, what are you talking about? That is not one of the sixth sense. You're being hocus pocusy here. You're talking about witchcraft and alchemy. Stop talking about that.
Cut that out.
Stop talking about that. Well, but you do. Yours isn't you've just never taken the time because your analytical brain is dominating your ability to feel other people. Your intuitive brain, right? And you were,
it's something I work on all the time.
But you're not that isn't an issue for you anymore.
No,
right?
But it comes back, I think if we sum this all up, it is your ability to become more versatile that is the goal. Whether you are more introverted or more extroverted, whether you're more driver or you're more analytical or whatever, it's to be more versatile, because the definition of versatility is the ability to work with a lot of different types of people, not just people like yourself, in a lot of different types of situations, some of which you might not actually be in your wheelhouse just yet, and to get a good result for all of them, regardless of whether they're just like you or they're not even like you at all. It's to work on your versatility. Remember that we're the sum of all of our experiences. So if you're not having experiences that are a little bit out of your wheelhouse, that's going to be hard for you to achieve that versatility. And the thing is that the agents that we've coached, the agents we're friends with, the coaches who are most versatile, also, might not surprise you, are the ones who are most profitable. The things are related.
Yes, that's true. And if you are, to my earlier point, if you are working through the emotional quagmire of having been pigeonholed as an analytical person because you took too many Myers-Briggs DISE tests, and part and parcel of that is you are then cast in as a supportive, never to be a frontline salesperson type, and you feel like you've had to give up on your goals and ambitions because of that and all these other things. I am giving you the, dare I say, permission to set all that stuff aside and realize that you are basically bought some snake oil from a snake oil salesperson, and all that personality stuff doesn't preordain you to anything. And if you're on the extroverted side and the test came out that you're the natural salesperson type, that doesn't give you permission not to be drilled down and become a better version of a salesperson following a system. So we're going to pick up where we left off tomorrow, when we have fun poking fun at extroverts.
Helping them, yes.
Yes, exactly. You guys have a fantastic day. We'll talk to you on the show tomorrow.